What if I told you that old age isn't the finish line, but the greatest test of your life? A test you can either spectacularly fail, drowning in regret and fear, or ace, gaining wisdom and peace. Today, armed with the wisdom of the ancient Stoics, we'll explore 10 key mistakes that turn your golden years into leaden ones. And I promise, by the end of this video, you'll see aging in a completely different light. To start, let's refresh our memory about who the Stoics were. They weren't just bearded men in togas, staring contemplatively into the distance. They were emperors like Marcus Aurelius, and former slaves like Epictetus, people who sought practical answers to life's most fundamental questions. Their philosophy wasn't a dusty theory for ancient texts, but a practical toolkit for the mind. And it's precisely these tools that help us approach old age not as an enemy, but as a mentor. So let's begin with perhaps the most significant and certainly the most insidious trap, the fear of what's beyond our control. As we age, this fear often grows louder. We dread potential illnesses, worry about our memory failing, and fret over financial security. We become like someone who constantly checks the weather forecast, sees an approaching storm, and is paralyzed by terror. They just sit at home waiting. But what's the point? Anxiety won't change the weather. It only poisons the calm days they have right now. This is precisely where the Stoics offer us a mental revolution. They tell us, stop staring at the clouds, look at your ship. The great Stoic Epictetus put it simply. Some things are in our control and some are not. Illness, the opinions of others, the passage of time, none of these are within our control. But what does remain? Our reactions, our thoughts, our decisions, our attitude towards unfolding events. Instead of panicking about the storm, a Stoic asks themselves, is my ship sturdy enough? Do I know how to navigate it? Am I firmly holding the helm of my mind? The focus shifts from useless fear to constructive action. Strengthen your character, cultivate your calm. This is your ship, impervious to any storm. And the second mistake, the one that truly drags us down like an anchor, is the heavy burden of the past. Those endless what-ifs. Sound familiar? What if I had chosen a different career? What if I hadn't broken up with that person? What if I had acted differently back then? These questions transform our present into a dusty museum of missed opportunities. We wander through its halls, gazing at the exhibits of lives we never lived, forgetting that real life is happening right outside the museum's doors, right here, right now. It's like trying to drive a car forward while constantly staring into the rearview mirror. Sooner or later, you're bound to crash. So, what do the Stoics offer? They provide us with a powerful antidote, the incredibly potent practice of Amor Fati. Translated from Latin, it means love of one's fate. And it's not merely passive acceptance or resignation. It's an active, passionate embrace of everything that has ever happened to you. Every mistake, every wrong turn, every scar. These aren't things to forget or try to erase. They are precisely what made you who you are. The Stoics teach us you can't tear pages out of the book of your life. Instead, embrace them as an essential part of the story that led you to this very moment. Another common mistake is our preoccupation with the aging of the body. As we get older, the mirror can transform from a friend into an enemy. We start seeing only wrinkles, grey hairs, and the telltale signs of fatigue. And so, we embark on a battle. Endless creams, costly procedures, and desperate attempts to turn back time. This relentless struggle transforms life into a stressful war against our very nature, a war we are ultimately destined to lose. We begin to identify so closely with our physical bodies that, as they weaken, we feel as though we ourselves become weaker and less valuable. But what is the Stoic perspective on all of this? He looks into that same mirror, but sees something entirely different. He says, "My body is merely a tool, lent to me for a time, like a hammer or an artist's brush. Of course it wears out over time. That's its nature. But I am not that hammer." Stoicism teaches us to separate ourself from our physical shell. Yes, the body changes, but my mind, my capacity for thought, my virtue, my character, these are what truly matter. And unlike the body, the mind can be developed and strengthened right up until our very last day. Instead of dwelling on wrinkles, we can focus on cultivating new wise thoughts. The body is like clay, which naturally cracks and shows wear over time. But the spirit, that's the fire within, and it can burn only brighter with age. This brings us to our next point, self-imposed isolation. As people age, many consciously begin to narrow their social circles. They decline invitations, reach out to friends less frequently, and cease to forge new connections. Thoughts begin to surface. I'm not as interesting a conversationalist anymore. My stories will just bore the younger generation, or I've become a burden. This path, paved with the good intention of not wanting to bother others, leads straight into a trap of profound loneliness and a sense of being unnecessary. But the Stoics saw things in a completely different light. They believed humans were, first and foremost, social creatures. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that we are born for cooperation, just like our hands, feet, and eyes. Our duty, our very nature, is to be of service to others until our last breath. Picture an old, majestic tree. It no longer grows as quickly as the young saplings around it. Its bark is covered in moss, and its branches are gnarled and twisted by time. Yet it's precisely this tree that offers the deepest shade to weary travellers, and it's in its roots that small creatures find shelter. Your purpose in old age is to be that tree, to share wisdom, to embody serenity, and to be that quiet harbour where others can seek counsel. Isolation, then, is the betrayal of our very nature, while serving others is its highest expression. And here's a classic intellectual blunder: giving up on learning. So many people, once they retire, decide their learning journey is officially over. Diplomas are earned, careers are built, and now it's time to simply relax. They harbour a pervasive myth that an ageing brain simply isn't what it used to be, slower to remember, sluggish to process. Consequently, they stop challenging it. They cease reading complex books, exploring new subjects, or acquiring new skills. Deprived of this mental workout, the brain begins to weaken, just like a muscle without regular exercise. And gradually, individuals confine themselves to a narrow world of the already familiar. For a Stoic, however, life itself is a continuous process of learning. They would scoff at the very idea that old age is a time to cease learning. Quite the opposite. It is with age that we finally acquire what was so scarce in youth: time and experience. Finally, one can delve without haste into the most complex subjects, read all the philosophers they never had time for, learn that language they always dreamed of, master a musical instrument. Stoics believed that the ultimate purpose of life is to become better, wiser, and more virtuous. And this is a journey that continues as long as we draw breath. For a Stoic, to stop learning is tantamount to voluntarily ceasing to live. Now let's talk about a subtle poison that slowly but surely eats away at the soul: the habit of complaining. As we get older, it seems the reasons to complain only multiply. Aches and pains set in, young people listen to strange music, prices keep rising, and the government... Well, you know how that goes. Without even realising it, one can turn into a walking thundercloud. Every morning, they wake up looking for something new to complain about. This negative focus burns all the joy out of life. Complaining doesn't solve problems. Instead, it's guaranteed to make both the complainer and everyone forced to listen utterly miserable. Instead, Stoicism offers a powerful practice, focusing on gratitude. But this isn't just everything's fine type of positive thinking. It's a conscious choice. Every morning, Seneca advised asking oneself, what can I be grateful for right now? And the answer is always there: for waking up, for the sun shining, for a warm cup of tea, for still being able to walk, for memories. Instead of lamenting what you no longer have, Stoics teach us to cherish what remains. Even the simple ability to see a sunrise or hear birds sing is an immense gift. Complaining makes us poor, even if we are rich. And gratitude makes us rich, even if we have almost nothing. It's a very subtle, yet common, pitfall for parents to try and maintain control over their adult children. This often stems from a place of love and the best of intentions, yet it's fundamentally a mistake. Parents, armed with a lifetime of experience, genuinely want to shield their children from making mistakes. They constantly offer unsolicited advice, meddle in their decisions, and often criticize their choice of partners or careers. In essence, they attempt to micromanage their children's lives, treating them as if they were still toddlers. This approach inevitably leads to conflict, resentment, and a growing distance between them. Children feel their autonomy isn't respected and that they aren't trusted, while parents, in turn, feel their wisdom and experience are being disregarded. A wise Stoic, however, understands a fundamental tenet of their philosophy, the dichotomy of control. They grasp with crystal clarity that their sphere of influence extends only to their own thoughts, words and actions. The life, decisions, and indeed the mistakes of another adult, even a cherished loved one, are simply beyond their control. A Stoic might offer counsel, but only when explicitly asked. They share their wisdom and experience, but never impose it. They accept their children's choices even if they don't personally agree, because they understand a profound truth. This is their journey, and they have every right to navigate it themselves. They cease to be a controller and instead become a wise advisor, a lighthouse that illuminates the way but never attempts to steer the ship. And it is precisely in this shift that their true value and wisdom begin to be genuinely appreciated. Next, there's the fear of boredom and inactivity. This is a significant challenge for many who transition into retirement. Their entire lives have been meticulously scheduled: work, responsibilities, goals. Then suddenly, there's a void, an overwhelming amount of free time with no clear idea how to fill it. People become restless. They desperately try to fill this emptiness with external distractions. Hours spent watching television, aimless wandering through shops, seeking any activity just to avoid being alone with their own thoughts. But these fleeting distractions quickly lose their appeal and fail to bring lasting satisfaction, leaving only a sense of meaninglessness. A Stoic, however, finds the primary source of engagement within themselves. For them, retirement isn't an end to activity, but rather the commencement of their most crucial work, the work of self-improvement. They don't fear silence and solitude. In fact, they embrace them. To a Stoic, reflection, reading, journaling, and self-analysis aren't boring tasks, but thrilling adventures. Finally, there's time to explore their inner world, sort through their thoughts, and take stock of their life. A Stoic understands that the most captivating companion they can have is themselves, and when you find yourself interesting, boredom simply doesn't exist. The external world might be quiet, but their inner world is vibrant and alive. Another common mistake is to measure your worth by past achievements. You've undoubtedly met people like this. Their conversations constantly drift back to the past. When I was your age, I was already running a department, or back in my day, we used to build rockets. That familiar phrase, back when, is a telltale sign that someone is living in the shadow of their former self. They cling to their bygone glories, old titles, accolades, successes, because they no longer feel significant in the present. Their self-worth is entirely tied to their resume, and when their active career ends, they feel as if their very existence has ceased. Stoicism, however, teaches us a fundamentally different approach. A person's value isn't defined by their track record, but by their character, right here and now. What truly matters isn't who you were, but the kind of person you are today. Are you kind, honest, just, courageous? These are the qualities that don't retire. Marcus Aurelius, even as Emperor of Rome, constantly reminded himself that his title was just an outward shell. The true essence was to remain a good person. For a Stoic, every new day is an opportunity to embody virtue. It doesn't matter if you're governing an empire or simply walking to the store for bread. Your worth lies in your actions in the present moment, not in the dusty accolades of yesterday. Next up, the addiction to comfort. As we get older, it's natural for many of us to gravitate towards maximum comfort and coziness. We buy softer chairs, avoid physical exertion, and try to stay indoors when the weather's bad. We do everything we can to avoid even the slightest hint of discomfort. But this relentless pursuit of comfort is a double-edged sword. It slowly makes us fragile, soft, and weak. Both our bodies and our spirits grow unaccustomed to any real challenges. And when life inevitably throws real difficulties our way, like illness or loss, we find ourselves utterly unprepared. The Stoics, on the other hand, practiced the exact opposite, voluntary discomfort. They intentionally and regularly subjected themselves to minor hardships. Seneca, one of Rome's wealthiest men, would periodically sleep on a hard floor, eat the plainest food, and wear old clothes. Why? To remind himself how little he truly needed for happiness, to toughen his spirit, and so, when real hardships inevitably arrived, they wouldn't catch him off guard. Think of it as a vaccine. A small dose of discomfort today makes you far more resilient to the bigger problems of tomorrow. A brisk walk in cool weather, skipping dessert, or taking a cold shower. These small victories over our soft tendencies build an unbreakable fortress of the spirit. There's a subtle, insidious mental habit that often grows stronger with age, the conviction that your opinion is the only correct one. After years of living and accumulating vast experience, a person starts to believe they've got the world all figured out. Their accumulated years transform into an impenetrable armour, blocking out any new idea or differing perspective. They stop listening and begin to lecture rather than learn. They see any argument not as an opportunity to learn, but as a direct challenge to their authority. This kind of person stops growing, becomes mentally rigid, and effectively turns into a living monument to their own past. A Stoic, however, always remains a student, even if they live to be 100. They remember Socrates' famous words, "I know that I know nothing." For a Stoic, wisdom is, first and foremost, the profound realization of their own boundless ignorance. They understand that their experience, no matter how vast, is merely a single drop in the ocean of knowledge. Therefore, they listen more than they speak. They ask questions rather than dispensing ready answers. They genuinely try to understand another person's perspective, even if it initially seems fundamentally wrong. They know that the moment you decide you know everything, your intellectual development halts permanently. And the 10th and final mistake we'll discuss today is the denial of death. That might sound grim, I know, but let's unpack this. In our culture, we're conditioned to shy away from thoughts of mortality. We act as if we'll live forever. We put off important conversations. We tell ourselves, I'll apologise tomorrow. I'll say, I love you next week. I'll truly start living when I retire. We live in the illusion of an endless later that might never arrive. This self-deception robs our present moments of their urgency, their significance, and their very meaning. The Stoics, on the other hand, actively practiced Memento Mori, remember death. They didn't do this to become gloomy or despairing. For them, it was the most powerful tool for living a vibrant and meaningful life. This reminder of our finite time was like an alarm clock, ringing out and saying, wake up, live now. When you truly remember that each day could be your last, you stop wasting it on trivialities, on grudges, and on fears. You begin to cherish every single moment. You say the important words today. You do what truly matters today. For a Stoic, the thought of death isn't a cause for fear, but the greatest stimulus to live fully, virtuously, and happily, right now. This is where the true paradigm shift, the core of the Stoic view on aging, reveals itself. The biggest mistake isn't just one of the points we've already covered. The greatest error is to view old age as a period of loss, a time when youth, health, and opportunities are stripped away. Stoicism, however, teaches us to see it as a time of liberation. Think about it. You're freed from the need to prove anything to anyone, freed from the hustle and bustle of the career ladder, from the constant pressure of others' opinions, and from many of the desires that plagued you in your younger years. For the first time in your life, you have the chance to focus not on what you possess, but on who you are. to be a wise, calm, and virtuous individual. This is the very freedom philosophers wrote about. Aging strips away the external, allowing you to finally cultivate the internal. So, all these 10 mistakes boil down to one central idea. We fight against nature instead of living in harmony with it. We try to halt the river of time instead of learning to skillfully navigate our boat. Stoicism doesn't promise eternal youth, but it offers something far more valuable: dignity and meaning at every single stage of life. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. If these ideas resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new explorations of timeless wisdom. Now, a question for you. Which of these mistakes do you find most relevant in today's world? Or perhaps you know of another we haven't mentioned? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's discuss.